our third expert, Dr. Prashant sir. He is professor of wheat science at School of Plant, Environmental and Soil Science, Louisiana State University, USA. He specialized in wheat biology, herbicide physiology, and integrated weed management. He earned his PhD in wheat science from Clemson University, USA in 2008, and he obtained his MSc and BSc from CCSHU Hisar, India. His research focused on sustainable IWM strategy, including crop cover, strategic tillage, crop rotation, harvest weed seed management, and AI-driven precision weed control. He has secured 13.7 million US dollar in research funding from USDA and commodity boards and industries. He has published over 160 review papers, and he has conducted more than 18 extension program. Dr. Jha sir has mentored graduate student, postdoctoral research and research specialists. He has received Outstanding Research Award from the Western Society of Wheat Science, Early Career Wheat Scientist Award from USSA, and Western Society of Wheat Science. He served as Associate Editor for Wheat Science and Wheat Technology and has been an board of director from Northern American Wheat Science Society and oversee editor for Indian Journal of Wheat Science. With this brief biodata, sir, I am inviting you for today's talk on perspective of smart wheat management strategies in major crop production systems.
Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Soni, and it is a great pleasure to be a part of this great training again this year. I think it was done last year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just before the conference. All right, so I will. You can hear me, okay?
Yes.
All right, can you see the slides?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
All right. Well, thanks again for the introduction and this opportunity to be with you all in this event. So, site have already attended management strategies and what we perceive is going to be important for the near future in terms of the major U.S. crop production systems as well as the global crop production systems, which is predominantly as you know is being challenged by the evolution of herbicide resistant weeds, and that is one of the sole reasons that, or I would say, like why we need to have more smart integrated weed management systems. As you can see in this picture by from the Weed Science Society international survey on the number of site of action of herbicides that has been discovered. And then you see this line where over the last 30 to 40 years, we haven't seen any new chemistries in soybean, cotton, or corn. So within the same time frame as you see, go from 1990s up to 2022 or 2025 now, weeds have continued to evolve resistance to the to these side of action of herbicides that you can see. Especially in the United States, we are dealing over the last decade, palmer amaranth, our biggest challenge across the agronomic crop production systems, as well as in vegetable crop production systems and horticulture crops as well, and water hemp being the second most, the two amaranth species with rapid evolution of resistance because of their high genetic diversity, and they have been pretty troublesome not only in one crops but in several different crops across the cropping systems. With this is the glyphosate resistant kochia in the U.S. Great Plains that I was working almost 8 to 10 years back at Montana State University in the US Great Plains. As you can see, the infestation of these resistant populations is not only restricted to one system, which is wheat-based dryland production system, but also in the irrigated soybean, corn, and other crops like sugar beet. So with the occurrence of these multiple herbicide resistant populations, now the question arises how we are going to make smart weed management practices, right, which are going to be sustainable. So on the left hand side, you see the no-till production system, which was predominantly adopted by the producers based on the Roundup Ready technology until we started seeing evolution of glyphosate resistant or Roundup resistant weeds. And some of these old systems of weed control, like cultivation, is still pretty viable. And although there are consequences, especially why farmers adopted the no-till or conservation tillage compared to the tillage systems, but again, they are reverting back to the tillage systems because of the continued evolution of resistance. So what else we can do to diversify our weed control methods? And I'm a big pro of understanding the basic weed biology and ecology, and can we use that information to develop our multi-tactic weed management programs. So some of the previous research, I'm going to share some of the slides, not go into the details of each and every data. But if we understand the emergence pattern, that is one of the first things that we need to understand about some of these troublesome weed species, whether it's Acacia in the Great Plains of the US, or it's Palmer, Johnson grass, or it's water hemp in the Midwest and in the South. So this is understanding the emergence pattern of these weed species in different crops across multiple years and multiple locations is one of the key things that you can use that information to develop your weed management program, especially when we talk about uh, some of these troublesome weed species and the planting dates or the growing cycle of each of these crops. For example, wheat is planted very early here in the fall, also or pretty early in the spring, followed by sugar beet, corn, which is planted around mid of May, and then dry beans or soybeans are our late planted crops, where you can see that majority of the emergence of this particular weed species, kochia, has already happened by the time you plant your dry beans or soybeans in the Great Plains area. So the previous speaker on nanotechnology kind of like mentioned about this, that the stealth seedbed approach, right? So it is a pretty old technology of stealth seedbed approach where we have been using that in different production systems, but there is again lack of adoption of this as we are more relying on herbicides in our intensive conventional production systems. So what I mean to say is like if just with a stale seed bed approach, I can reduce the population or emergence of the total in-season emergence of that particular species by almost 90% if I select uh, a late planted crop. So based on that, we did a multi-location studies, understanding the impact of some of these basic weed management practices, which is the number one weed manage old concept, which is still uh, uh, has been underutilized, but definitely is going to be very powerful for us in terms of understanding the dynamics of our weed seed banks and how each of these practices combined together can impact. So looking at the effect of long-term effects of tillage, rotational diversity, and herbicide use pattern over multiple years. And I'm not showing all the data, just trying to show you the key aspects of this research, looking at these are the different crops, looking at how the crop canopy can impact the weed seed banks and the weed density within the growing season. So a spring wheat, as I mentioned earlier, which is emerging, which is planted very in the fall here during the winter time, and then other crops are summer crops like corn, dry beans, sugar beet. So that winter wheat the canopy is pretty well developed by the time some of these wheat species are emerging. So that's why we are seeing a reduction in the densities of this particular wheat species, which is Kochia, in the presence of the spring wheat crop as compared to other crops like corn or sugar beet. Okay, and similarly, uh, just by selecting the most competitive crop, and the effect of crop canopy is pretty evident also in terms of reductions in the weed seed inputs at the end of the growing season. So when we combine this across the different crop rotations, continuous corn versus two crops over the 4-year period, as well as three crops over the 4-year period, and the most diverse rotation, which is the corn, dry bean, wheat, and sugar beet, where we have a late planted crop and a early crop like wheat in between the corn and sugar beet, we can drastically reduce the density of our resistant population after 3 years, as you can see in this slide. Even, and that is more important, that even we are solely relying on just one herbicide chemistry, the ALS chemistry, in all the crops in all the 4 years, we see a reduction as we go from uh, corn, sugar beet, which is the least diverse rotation, to the most diverse rotation. But when we are applying all these tactics or putting all these tactics together as an integrated weed management approach and using multiple chemistries as well as rotation of these chemistries on an annual basis in each of the crops, then in an intensive tillage system compared to the minimum tillage, then we can easily see here how effective that program is in reducing the density from 480 to almost like 8 seedlings per meter square. So with just with the same chemistry being used, okay? So basically we are trying to develop this system where we are not relying solely on the herbicides, but on other tactics, which is the crop rotation, the growing cycle of the crop versus the weed species as well as tillage. And when you are adopting all three of those together, we're reducing now the population from 480 to 1 plant per meter square. Okay, so moving on to how we are going to handle this multiple herbicide resistance issues, which is right now a global issue, not only in the US production systems, in India, as well as in Australia and other countries, where we are seeing evolution of more of this metabolism-based resistance in the weed species, where they can develop resistance even to some of the chemistries that are not in the marketplace. Okay, so this metabolism-based resistance is going to complicate our weed management efforts, especially if we are relying solely on herbicides. That's why there is a need for this smart integrated weed management decisions and how effectively we can use each of these. I talked about the diverse crop rotations, right? How we can break the life cycle of the weed species and target the weed seed banks. How effectively we can reduce or select crops with narrow row spacings. The implications of cover crops, it has gained a lot of momentum over the last 5 to 8 years here in the United States because of some of the suppression effects on the weed seed banks, harvest weed seed control technology, where we are targeting the weed seeds, and this research I did almost like 4 to 5 years, and still continuing this research. And that technology was brought from Australia because they have been dealing with this multiple herbicide-resistant rigid ryegrass and annual ryegrass for a long, long time. Just one slide here, which, as you can see, that the amount of infestation of these particular weed species, palmer amaranth or water hemp, in the soybean rows versus this is the cover crop which was planted and in the fall and then terminated at the time of soybean planting. So there's a huge amount of residue here. You can see that has a suppressive effect on the water hemp density, and you can look at these numbers. At the same time, we're reducing the seed bank inputs because of that weed suppression benefits. So basically, some of these plants which are still here, they're going to grow up and they're going to produce seed. And if we know that some of these weed species are very troublesome, like water hemp or palmer amaranth, because they can produce, they're prolific seed producers and they can produce up to 500,000 seeds. So 99% control for some of these species is not is is sounds pretty good, but it is not enough when we talk about the palmer amaranth, which is resistant to 9 different side of action of herbicides because of this prolific seed production, as well as these species are cross-pollinated. They are dioecious. There is a separate male and female, so there is an open pollination and gene flow of the herbicide-resistant alleles going across the landscape. One of the other research areas that I have been focusing over the last 5 to 6 years, as I mentioned, is targeting the wheat seed bank at the time of the crop harvest, and we have been pretty successful. While I was at Iowa State University, did this and then moved to Louisiana State University. Being few years here, we are seeing a lot of interest and adoption of these harvest weed seed control methods, because continuously some of the fields where we are seeing herbicide resistance issues, they look pretty much like this at the time of our harvest. So you can see the amount of seed bank inputs that can happen within a growing season. And these fields have been already treated with multiple passes of herbicides. So this technology is based on is installed in the combine at the rear part of the combine, and as there are some weeds which are standing at the time of crop harvest, and when your combine, oops, when your combine makes a pass through the field, you're dispersing all those seeds that these plants are holding. Okay, so there is rapid movement of the weed seeds and herbicide resistance because of these combines. So that's where this technology comes from, where we are trying to uh, uh, put make some modifications in the combine, where we can separating out the chaff from the straw fraction, and we found that majority of the weed seeds, almost like 99% of the weed seeds, are within the chaff fraction that is coming out of at the back of the combine. So again, this system is not going to work for all the weed species, but predominantly for some of those weed species like palmer amaranth or water hemp that can retain the seeds at the time of the harvest of the crop. Okay, so that's what this technology is going to be viable. Can we capture those seeds and destroy them? Also, one of the other research looking at this, you can see this is a grower production field close to 1,000 acres, where with water hemp, multiple herbicide and water hemp at the time of soybean harvest. So these are the chaff lines which are laid at the center of the combine, where we are concentrating majority of our weed seeds. So some of you might have seen this in my previous presentation, also done last year. But again, this technology is gaining a lot of momentum here in the United States, especially in the by the soybean producers, because this is very cheap installation. It doesn't cost a whole lot, around four to 5,000 US dollars. That's what and simple modifications in the combine. So again, this picture here shows that how much amount of weed seeds we can concentrate within these chaff lines, and can reduce the spread of those weed seeds across the, for example, 100 feet or 150 feet wide combine passes. We worked with USDA on a grant, multi-state grant, looking at how these chaff lines, which are there over the growing seasons, multiple growing seasons, how and they are attracting seed predators like carabid beetles or rodents, and how it is impacting the seed survival and viability as well as subsequent emergence in the following crop. So in the Midwestern part of the United States, after the soybean crop where you are laying these chaff lines, the following crop is going to be the corn, and you can still see the chaff line is right there at the middle of each plot, and which has been planted with corn in the following year. And again, we have our standard herbicide programs that we used as a pre and post. We also used band-aid post, where we are just banding the herbicide just on the chaff lines, not spraying outside the chaff lines. Interestingly, this work is also published in Weed Science, where we saw that because of the residue inside the chaff line, there was a reduction in the or there was delay in the emergence of the weed seedlings, and in the presence of a pre-emergence herbicide, which or a residual herbicide, we saw a further delay in the emergence of the weed, which in this case is palmer amaranth or water hemp. Some of the interesting results here that inside the chaff line where majority of your weed seeds are concentrated, that's what we expected, that the weed density is going to be higher because that's where we are concentrating all our weed seeds within the chaff lines, and then outside the chaff lines we are not. And these chaff lines are pretty narrow, 10, around like 20 to inches wide at the most, and 5 to 6 inches deep. So we are seeing reductions outside from 120 to 23 to 40 plants per meter square, and at the same time in the however, as I said, like for water hemp and palmer amaranth, a single application of a pre-product is not sufficient. So in order to reduce that density, we definitely need a follow-up post-application. But outside the chaff line, even with one single application of a pre-emergence herbicide, we reduce the density to 2 plants per meter square 6 weeks after the post-emergence application. And it was not statistically at least different from the pre followed by post. So we definitely reduced our reliance on the herbicide by adopting this integrated weed management tactic, which is mechanically driven. At the same time, one of the interesting observations, we saw that in the following year, after like almost like 10 to 9 to 10 months after we laid down those chaff lines in the previous year's soybean crop, we see those effects, suppression effects, going in the following year in the corn crop inside the chaff line because of the delayed emergence, as I showed you in the graph. The size of the weed seeds were smaller as compared to the outside of the chaff lines. Of course, there was a lot of weed emergence here because that's where our weed seeds are concentrated within the chaff line, but definitely the weeds are smaller in size at the time of the post application, which is definitely beneficial because we really want to target small size weeds at the time of application. And it is why it is important. It is important because some of these weed species like palmer amaranth and water hemp that you see in this picture, they can grow 1 to 2 inches tall within a day. So if we are delayed because of rainfall or any other scenarios by almost 5 days, 7 days, they get pretty big, and that's where the failures happen, especially with the post-emergence herbicide programs. And this is one of the John Deere's combine that we started this research almost 4 or 5 years now. And whatever the weed seeds that are coming at the back of the combine, this seed destructor technology, as you can see here, it has 2 high impact mills, which are basically powdering or pulverizing those weed seeds as it exits at the rear of the combine. It's a simple belt driven system. However, chaff lining, as I said, like 4 to 5,000 US dollars, not very expensive, whereas this technology is around 70 to $75,000, relatively expensive as compared to the other. So the cost is very important for right now, as we know that the commodity prices are low, and with all the um, ongoing crisis, uh, we are seeing uh, that farmers have to spend a lot more as compared to previous 10 years uh, in in inputs, both in terms of fertilizer cost, the seed cost, as we are using more of these uh, herbicide tolerance traits in our seed technology. So the cost is also going up. At the same time, we are putting more and more herbicides, more number of passes of herbicides to control those weeds, which we could have controlled easily uh, 10 years or 15 years back. So considering all those, the cost is an important factor. The economics, the cost benefit ratio is an important driving factor for adoption of these integrated weed management technologies. As you can see in this particular seed destruction technology, where we are passing this combine, this is almost covering 100 feet in each pass. At the time of soybean harvest, we are capturing the weed seeds in these trays, and then we are bringing those into the lab and looking under the microscope, as well as testing the viability and germination of those weed seeds. So in the subsequent years, we are also monitoring in the following crop, which could be soybean or cotton, depending on where you are. In the Midwest, it is going to be corn. In the southern U.S., it may be cotton. So depending on that, we are also monitoring the emergence pattern and how much reductions in the seed bank can happen, because the reductions in the seed bank may not happen overnight. It certainly does not. So it takes a number of years, right? So at least 2 years, 3 years, where you are going to see the impact of some of these integrated practices like cover crops or narrow rows or even harvest weed seed control. This is a classical example here. The picture showing as all the residue is passing at the back of the thresher, and those uh, chaff containing the weed seeds are passing through these two units with the high, what we call as the high impact mills. They are pulverizing and the weed seeds, and that's why you are seeing. So it creates a pretty dusty environment when we are uh, passing that combine, because everything is getting pulverized into a powder. And this is the level of destruction that can happen based on the seed destruction of palmer amaranth seeds, which are in this picture. You're seeing those seeds are looking big because they're under the microscope, but those seeds are pretty small and less than 1 millimeter in size. If you have seen palmer amaranth and some of the other amaranthus species, um, these are the full intact seeds without the seed destructor unit, and these are the different levels of damage that you can see to the that can happen. So we saw more than 90% destruction of weed seeds, not only for water hemp and palmer amaranth. I'm not showing the data for some of the other species like lamb's quarters, as well as grassy weeds like barnyard grass, etc. So we germinated those weed seeds. We are looking at the emergence in the following years, and definitely there has been reduction in the overall seed bank um, by within 2 to 3 years of adopting this technology. Not only in the soybean, we tried this also in other crops like corn, and this is corn or maize here, where in the subsequent years we are monitoring the seed bank losses as a result of this technology. And this is the high impact mill. Without the high impact mill, a normal harvest operation, and this is with the technology of high impact mill, you can see the reduction in the weed seed bank. The other in IWM, smart IWM tactic that is gaining some momentum here in the United States, mostly in the vegetable production systems, horticulture production systems, is electrocution, use of high voltage. This we tried this while I was at Iowa State University, and this research was led by Dr. Kevin Bradley at University of Missouri, funded by the North Central Soybean Research Board and USDA. So the key for this technology is basic electrocution is using high voltage, which is 110,000 watt generator, which you can see at the back. And that's where the electricity is being carried at the front, which is called the boom. And this is a copper, a 3 meter copper boom, which is in front of this tractor, as you can see. And you can move it up or down this boom, just like a spray boom above the crop canopy. So basically, we cannot use this technology during the growing season, but later in the growing season, the optimal timing was the R4, R5 stage of our soybean. That's where there will be a high differential between the crop and the weed. That's the most critical thing for electrocution or using this electricity or high voltage to destroy the weeds. So basically, whether it's a grassy weed or it's a palmer amaranth or water hemp, that should be growing taller as compared to your crop, which is soybean in this case. So we found that again, this is a late season tactic, just like a harvest weed seed control, and we have done a good bit of research on this. It has been pretty effective to control water hemp, palmer amaranth, and giant ragweed, as well as some other weed species that we evaluated in the Midwestern US. Um, a lot of interest is growing in this area, not only for conventional farmers in the United States, but also for organic farmers in terms of mitigating these weed seed banks. So we were capturing the weed seeds also at maturity and testing the viability. So basically, this electrocution or using this weed zapper high voltage of up to 7 to 20 amps and 15,000 volts. So basically, when this thing is running in your field, you better be at least 50 to 100 feet away from this, because you can feel the vibration of this electrocutor. So overall, we were able to reduce the weed seed viability up to 80% within one growing season, and that is tremendous in terms of reducing our herbicide inputs. So the question arises, these are the small little pieces that I talked about: cover crops, herbicides, harvest weed seed control, or late season electrocution in our agronomic production systems. But the key is how well we can understand how to integrate these tactics to manage our weed seed banks, okay? And that definitely, what is the cost benefit ratio? When we talk about this, uh, from a scientific standpoint, it sounds pretty good. The data looks pretty good, but from a practical standpoint, here in the United States, where the growers on an average have 2,000 to 2,500 acres of land and crop, and as I mentioned earlier, with the commodity prices going down, definitely economic benefits of this technology needs to be proven, and that's what we are working on currently with collaborators from other universities. Just moving on to the remote sensing and AI-driven weed control, because that's what is also one of the technologies that is not only gaining importance here in the United States, but also in Europe, as well as in India, as well as in Australia. So how well we can use this? Um, some of the imaging work that we have done earlier, and my program started this work way back, almost like in 2016, when I was still at Montana State University as a weed scientist, looking at some of these smart spray systems, as well as developing AI-based detections. So it's been almost 10 years that we have been working on this uh, for different crops, for different weed species, developing the spectral signatures, identifying characteristics, so that we can use this technology for precision weed control. We found that, and this work is also published, we found that uh, if we can identify those weed species, we know the spectral reflectance of those weed species in different crop canopies. Then we can fine tune our algorithms, as well as fine tune our sensors to specific to those wavelengths, and we saw that more separations. I'm going to show you some of the data, more separations of those weed species in the near infrared region. So based on that, we can selectively develop some of these, and I was working with computer engineers on this. And this particular sensor is probably $100 to $200. That's what the cost is, and you can put underneath the combine and map your field and develop this prescription maps. So very cost-effective technology, but in order to make more informed decisions for you next year. In-crop use of this UAV-based remote scouting, I'm pretty sure there is a lot of focus on this at this point. Also here in the United States, as I mentioned earlier, where we were using DJI Matrix 600 Pro. Now we cannot use DJI because it is banned by the U.S. government in the U.S. So it is really also one of the challenges, because the other drones that we have from other companies, they are not as cost effective as DJI Matrix drone. So it was hooked up with a Pika-L hyperspectral camera, and we were trying to develop some spectral reflectance differences between the crop and the weed species. SB stands for sugar beet crop here, and which is the in green line. So clear separation, good accuracy, that's no brainer. But when we start identifying different weeds present in a single field, a mixed population, that's where the things get more complicated, and where we are going to further refine our algorithms so that we are more precise in detection, because the key is detection of those with a high accuracy under different environmental conditions. So here we can see the separation. This is the crop, which is the sugar beet, and the different weed species like kochia, horseweed, common lamb's quarters, etc. We also were successful in using these hyperspectral imaging platforms, both in ground-based sensing system as well as in drone-based systems, to identify not only weed species in a production field, but also the resistant and susceptible biotypes of those weed species that were showing differences more in the near infrared region of the spectrum, as you can see here. And the accuracies were ranging from somewhere from 77 to up to 98%. We are continuing this work, AI-driven early detection of herbicide-resistant weeds in crop, this particular field. And this is the recent work that we are currently doing. We have different levels of treatments here, both for herbicides as well as cover crops. And we are understanding, taking the data, the ground truth data, just like a basic weed biology and ecology experiment, measuring the density in the quadrants and all that. At the same time, we are taking that data, the population dynamics data, using this UAV-based imaging system. So on the left-hand side is the orthomosaic, the image processing, as you can see, with the UAV acquired data. This is the soybean production field. This is the orthomosaic, and this is the NDVI. So how well now we can fine-tune our algorithms, which are basically the machine learning models that we can identify more precisely different densities and of weeds within a production field, and identify different species at the same time, use that to develop our prescription maps for targeted applications. The accuracies of classification, as you can see, has been pretty good with our models that we have selected, both for palmer amaranth and soybean. And these are the palmer amaranth plants in the soybean you can see in this picture. And ultimately, the application, which is the most important thing, is developing these prescription maps. And these are some of the, there's a lot of progress going on, as you can imagine, in the AI. It has entered our lifestyle, even in terms of what AI can do, starting from ChatGPT, for some of the students that use ChatGPT not only in the class, but also this AI has gaining importance across multiple disciplines, including agriculture. So some of these softwares which you can use and One of them is the Agrimo that we used, and we fed our data, our model into that system, and then it gives us the prescription map for high density areas indicated by red, and these low densities, the orange, or where there is less Palmer amaranth infestation, and then green are where there is no Palmer amaranth infestation. So that particular prescription map can be fed to our spray drone for site-specific applications. So we are going to conduct the study over multiple years and looking. I am more interested where is not only just the spot spray application, but how does it impact uh, the the long-term weed seed bank dynamics in our cropping systems. Apart from the drone-based systems, there is a big use of this see and spray technology, which is John Deere's. But again, the cost is one of the major factors in using this. And again, these are multiple sensors within the spray boom, and each of these sensors are with the cameras, and how well you can detect the weed species driving at 10, 20, 15 miles an hour so that's a concern. Again, if you some of the growers are using this, but again, those are large scale production growers. They are around 5,000 to 10,000 acres of crops they are growing every year. So, but for small farmers in the range of 1,000 to 2,000 acres here in the United States, probably this technology is still pretty expensive. But definitely holds a lot of promise. So it is costing around half to $1 million to have a unit something like this. So again, as I said, there are a lot of technologies available. One of my previous speaker talked about nanotechnology. I think that's a great. That was a great presentation. I really enjoyed that. But again, adoption of some of these technologies, especially when we talk about smart weed management practices, is definitely we need to more carefully evaluate that and try. That's what I try to talk with the growers and tell them that try to integrate at least one or two different weed management practices apart from your herbicides at a time, and then see the benefits. So with that, I think I will try to respect your time, and we'll end the presentation. We'll be open for any questions if we still have time.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful talk and enriching our knowledge with your experiences, sir. So now we are open for question and answer. So if any participant having any question, you can raise your hand. Okay, Sumit Misra having some question. You can unmute him. Gyananji, Sumit.
Hello.
Yes, I
Hello.
can hear you.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thank you for
Good.
your wonderful presentation, sir.
Thank you
Actually,
so much.
sir, my question is that as you have talked about precision agriculture. So right now in Indian continent, where like we are doing agriculture like following conventional methods, there are a lot of challenges. So what are your views, sir, on this? How we will going to implement precision agriculture in India, and what policies government should follow to adopt a particular precision agriculture, and farmers will able to use it properly.
Th- That's a great.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Precision agriculture is gaining momentum all over. I think globally, and the major factor, as I said, like with some of these robotics and all those, they here in the United States, the robotics and the robotic weeders or laser technology, all those, uh, you might have heard about. They are more in specialty crops, high value horticultural crops, fruits and nuts, not in agronomic production system because of the cost, right? So the cost is the prohibiting factor when we talk about adoption of any technology. That's the number one. When we talk about the differences in the US agriculture versus the in India, again, uh, what is the affordability of the farmers? Some of these technologies like UAVs, it is quite affordable, right? The drone technology, I think that is going to gain more momentum. Also in India, because there is I see a lot of implications of this. Uh, Definitely, India is the powerhouse of IT. So AI and all those are very affordable, and I think the weed science as well as the whole agronomy discipline should focus more on these AI-driven technologies, because cost is again a prohibiting factor for anything here in the United States. But uh, as we see, as I said, like we are the powerhouse of IT. So I think there is a great future for adoption of this precision weed control, which is going to be affordable in countries like India.
Sir, one question, anonymous attendee he has asked, how to feed or transfer the weed data to the herbicide spraying drone?
Yeah, that is so the spray drone that we are through software, okay, through software. That's the answer. Great question. So basically, the software, once you develop your prescription map, and that is also a software-driven prescription map, and there are different kind of softwares you can use. You can self-program some of these. So the key here is to improve your accuracy of detection. That's the number one. Once that is done, then 90% of the job is done. So the complication here is even with John Deere See and Spray technology, which is almost $500,000 to $1 million, depending on what size of spray boom you are using, anywhere from 50 feet to 150 feet, they have it. So you pay that cost, but the amount of detection is still questionable. Okay, so and again, it differs a lot in terms of in terms of when you're flying the drone, when you're capturing your data, what time of the day, what's the wind speed, uh, the sun, the shading, the cloud, all those factors. Okay, so definitely we need more improved AI-driven systems. And I think there are more softwares which are coming in the marketplace now. You can buy subscription of those softwares that can do this weed detection job. And once your prescription map is developed with your model, so you need to have a very robust model, a good set of validation data, a good set of training model for your algorithms, a robust set of environmental conditions that you can use. Once that model is built, uh, then it is easy. Then it is a simple step of using your software to develop the prescription map, and some of these spray drones that we are using, which like the Helio spray drone Ag 210 that we are using, which is 2.5 gallon tank on the drone. That again has a software that will enable you to transfer or using shape files, right? The shape files you can use, and you can transfer your data, the shape data to your drone, and then tell the drone where it's going to spray. Okay. So that process is already been taken care of by the companies who are manufacturing these spray drones. So our part is to do more research and focus on how best we can improve our identification systems.
Yes. One more question from Sunita Pawar. Okay, Sunita, you can ask your question.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Yes. Sir, for imaging using the drones from the multispectral camera or sensor, is there any study for the height? What height we should keep for more precision? And for spraying drones also, whether there is any standard height for herbicides? height.
Yeah, the height for our multispectral camera that we are using with the DJI drone is generally in the range of 10 to 15 meters above the crop canopy. It again depends on what model and what's the resolution of your camera that you are using for in that drone. Okay, so that defines, if you have a better resolution, you can fly probably 12 or 15 meters above the crop canopy. If you have a lower resolution, then you should fly probably lower at a lower height. And the spray drones are generally 2 to 3 meters above the crop canopy, because you don't want it to fly too high, because it's going to cause drift issues.
Okay, so sir, I think now no more questions, sir. One more question. Bhagwati. Okay, I think no, by mistake she has raised her hand. Okay, sir. No. Bhagwati, you want to ask question? Bhagwati.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Is my voice is audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sir. I think this presentation is really eye-opening presentation, which one is so many informations we received. So I have one doubt regarding that software. May I know any specific software is used for this transferring this data and kind of things? Any specification is there? Because these things are not easily available, which one it's difficult to search or difficult to find out the data from getting from the drone, the precision agriculture, everything. May you know from your view, do you know any specification of software name? If comes to know means I think.
There are several of those. Again, you can buy the subscription of those. So the one which we used is the Agremo weed detection, or Agremo, Agremo. So you can look up online for some of these softwares, and also it depends on when you are using it in a spray drone, then your spray drone should also be capable of doing that prescription based spot spray. Okay, some of the spray drones can just fly and do a broadcast application in the entire field, but for more targeted applications, your spray drone should also be should have that feature.
Sir, last question we will take, sir.
And I'm sorry for that. I'm not very sure what companies in India you should be talking to for some of these softwares. I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Sir, last question we will take, sir. Can AI and machine learning really identify weeds in mixed and dense fields like in India?
I think yes, and that's what we're targeting here, in a mixed population, dense, like in different crop canopies, in wheat, in soybeans, in corn, in cotton, also in sugarcane. In Louisiana is one of the sugar producing states in the United States. Okay, sugarcane is grown only in Louisiana and Florida. So we are looking at different crops and different crop canopies, and how does that impact our accuracy of detection, right? So mixed wheat densities, that's what I'm interested in, because if there is only one single species, we know what it is. It's an easy application with your drone, but when it's a multiple mixture of dicots or monocots together, then it makes the identification more challenging, and that's where you need more specific spectral reflectance based information and more refined machine learning algorithms or the AI. So yes, definitely it is possible.
So, sir, thank you so much. Now, no more questions are there, sir. Definitely,
Yeah, thank
your
you so
lecture
much.
helps us to enrich our knowledge, and we are also trying to moving toward AI-based weed detection and herbicide displacement. So definitely it will helpful for all of us, sir. So
Yeah, thank you so much.